Hey, Gal and Mayan here. Welcome to the Coffee Talkie Show, the podcast for women living abroad. Today, we have a special guest with us, Sasha. Get ready as we delve into exciting world of parenting abroad with young kids, uncovering the cultural differences, common challenges, and invaluable tips she has to offer. But first, let us introduce you to our guest.
Sasha Romary is a talented and lovely Parenthood originally from New York City, specializing in supporting families worldwide during pregnancy, postpartum sleep and potty training. Growing up in Paris and having lived in Singapore, Spain and Germany before returning to Paris with her husband and 2 boys, Sasha understands the unique challenges of parenting while living abroad. Today, she's empowering parents to make informed decisions while trusting their instincts. As every journey is unique, her goal is to support parents in finding the right parenthood path for them in a foreign country.
Plus, just like us, she loves a good cup of coffee and the streets of Paris. That's how we recently met her in person, and today we're super happy to have her as a guest on our show. So we invite you to grab your coffee and notebook and give a big loving welcome to Sasha.
Hi Sasha, thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
Thank you. I am great. I'm thrilled to be here with you both today.
This is amazing. We're happy to have you on our podcast and can't wait to record this episode because I know that so many of our listeners can, listen and get inspired and even get some real tips and advices from you. So let's just jump in. Why is what you do so important for parents moving and living abroad?
Yeah, well, I've been living abroad since the age of 15. But my journey in parenthood started with the birth of my son here in Paris, and going through pregnancy and birth, and especially the newborn phase, left me feeling completely overwhelmed. Really feel like I didn't really feel supported in my parenting choices, and I was really inspired to help others navigate parenthood. So fast forward to today. I have given birth in 2 countries. I have raised babies and now children in 3. I am a certified doula, sleep coach, and potty training specialist. And I understand the unique cultural complexities that come with raising children abroad. Over the last almost decade now, I have supported hundreds of parents all over the globe in finding their own path through parenthood. And navigating parenthood in and of itself is challenging. And then you add in the complexities of parenting in a new culture, often away from family and familiar support systems, and things can feel just that much more overwhelming. Your parents at home are giving you advice, your friends at home and your friends in this new location are giving you advice, your local pediatrician, daycare providers, and don't even get me started on all of the conflicting information that you read online. And so I really support families with the understanding that there is no right or wrong way to parent, that parenting can and should look different for each family and especially in each culture, and that parents are really the experts on their own babies and children. And so I provide parents with evidence-based information and unbiased support to really help and empower them to make the most informed choices for them and their families.
I love it. And like you mentioned, this is so important because, parenting on itself is challenging, and moving abroad, living abroad is challenging. Combining them together, you need help, right? And this, I find it, what you're doing is really, really important. And a lot of people can benefit and should benefit from it. And I also really love your approach on every parent should act differently. That's okay. There's no right or wrong. And parents are the experts. I love that.
You touched upon it very quickly on your personal experience. Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about what was it for you and then what was it for you as a mother?
Yeah, absolutely. I moved abroad when I was 15. My parents moved me here to Paris, and it was supposed to be 1 year. 25 years ago. And so I kind of grew up here in high school, and really believe I kind of think of Paris as my home. Um, I had my first son here in Paris. And I kind of think of, even though I kind of grew up here in Paris, originally from New York and moved here, I kind of think of my life abroad journey almost as kind of chapter number 2 as my parenting abroad journey. And so we moved from Paris to Singapore with an 11-month-old. And then we moved to Munich with a toddler and had our second son within the first year of our arrival in Munich. And then we came back home to Paris with a 3 and 5-year-old. And each of these moves and experiences were so very different. Likely because our children were different ages, but the cultures and languages were so vastly different as well. And so, like with children, every move abroad will bring its own uniqueness. And so, in Singapore, for example, help and support is really built into the culture, often hired help. And we were also in the heart of Southeast Asia. And so we spent the weekends traveling throughout the region with my son. We were in Bali one weekend and Thailand the next. And everywhere we went, we had waiters and hotel staff and random lovely people on airplanes who would play with our son, and he was treated like this little baby king. And we brought him everywhere with us. He saw some of the most spectacular beaches and played with local children everywhere we went and ate the most amazing food. And all of this was completely normal and natural for him. And then we traded the beach for the mountains and moved to Munich. Um, we had our second son there shortly after our arrival, and support and hired help in Munich was hard to come by, and so that was kind of an adjustment for us. But government aids kind of took their place. We had a paid family benefit. I actually think we had 2, and 14 months of paid parental leave. And so both boys there started in collective care. They started in kind of a local preschool called Krippe in German. And German quickly became their preferred language. And so before our eyes, we had these 2 trilingual toddlers who would speak English with me, French with my husband, German to each other, and eat pretzels and go on hikes. And then we moved back to Paris. They have since lost their German, unfortunately, but they have learned to write in perfect French script en attaché, and enjoy being closer to family. We have my in-laws are here, and we're surrounding ourselves with family, but also after that time abroad, we've also surrounded ourselves with some like-minded parents who are raising multilingual, multicultural children. And we really feel like Paris is long-term home for us.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love I love seeing this because growing up abroad, us, we moved around and we also, we thought we were the only kids,
being a little bit of there, a little bit of there, speaking a couple of languages. I always find it super fun. Even today, Mayan and I can have in one sentence speak three languages, and it sounds completely normal to us, and we just like keep on going. Like, and even here on like what we do, our podcast, our business, it happens to me. Usually I realize it while editing that we say something in Hebrew, for example, as part of like as part of the sentence, and because you say it in the right intonation, it doesn't sound weird. But as kids, we felt that it's different.
Yeah, we felt the
different one. And I love seeing more and more families today opening themselves to this, building like families of multicultural families, like your husband is French, you're American, creating kids that are multiple nationalities, multiple identities. That's amazing.
I agree. I totally agree. And you mentioned some of the cultural differences with the help and support from people around you and from the government. What other challenges have you seen through your experience in life abroad and through your clients? Cultural differences, parenting in different cultures.
One of the biggest differences that I've kind of experienced was actually the approach to birth from country to country. I found this really fascinating. If we take kind of Germany and France for an example, they're geographical neighbors. But birthing in these two countries could not be more different culturally. Here in France, epidurals and birth intervention rates are extremely high, especially here in Paris. And most women have hospital births, and it's almost the expectation that they'll have an epidural. And in Germany, however, physiological and unmedicated births are the norm. Cesarean rates and intervention rates are much lower, and home births are much more common and even encouraged. And so I have birthed in both of these places, and the systems are actually very similar with midwifery-led care. But the approach that midwives take in supporting women has really molded to the cultural norms of each country. So my midwife here in France, in preparation for birth, walked through all of the stages of labor, but was very quick to highlight when was the best time to have an epidural, and spent a lot of time talking about what to expect with an epidural. And in Germany, on the very first visit with my midwife, she was questioning why I even wanted to have a hospital birth. This was my second baby. I could just have him in a birthing tub in the middle of my living room in my apartment. And so I just found it really, really interesting to see how two geographically close countries can have such different birthing cultures.
Wow, that's
I can only imagine, and I can only imagine like I haven't given birth, so I don't know. But the fact that you're American, you probably had ideas of how it's supposed to be, or heard from your mom or your friends or whatever, how it's in the States, and it's definitely different from Europe.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everything I was reading, essentially, everything I would look up online were mostly American resources, sometimes British resources. But yeah, I mean, if you go and compare France and Germany to the US, then that's like a whole nother can of worms to open.
And I think that's a source of stress for so many women, for example, coming to a new country. Sometimes they come without kids and they have their kids abroad and they don't know what to expect, while giving birth or, during the pregnancy. It's a whole different system. It's a whole different culture. And I understand why it can be really stressful to give birth in a country that is not what you know and what you heard, even if it's the first time. That you don't know anything, you think you read online, you hear stories, but you think and you don't know anything. but and it's even harder to do that in another country, in another culture.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what I do spend a lot of time working with clients on navigating birth in the country that they're in, and there are a lot of tools that you can kind of put in place. You know, whether what I do a lot is kind of zoom out and spend some time talking to parents to be, whether it's their first, second, or even third, just depending on where they are, talking about what they want their birth experience to look like and how to communicate that with their care providers, and designing a birth plan, which is often more of birth preferences. Kind of, there's only so much you can control in the birth world, but having those conversations with your care providers, and then often where possible, I recommend that people do hire a birth doula. Those are usually local birth support people that, especially if you don't speak the language, they can be there with you, in the birthing room, making sure that you understand what options and choices you have available to you, and can really be your birth advocate.
It sounds like very smart advice, and I'm sure like the women that are listening to us right now are going to benefit from it, because I think it's important to have someone by your side that is following what you want, because every country, as you mentioned, will have their own way of doing things, and sure, you will have at some point to fit the norm. Right now, like if you're going to a local doctor, you will have to follow at least some of their guidelines, if not most of them.
Yeah.
But having someone by your side that supports you and understand and can navigate the difference. I call it like translate not only the language but the culture difference.
That's so true. And you mentioned birth as a cultural difference, but after a child is born, there the whole all other things, and there's of course school and the whole education system, but also care, doctor, everything is so different from country to country. And I can share with you that yesterday I went to the doctor with my daughter. She has allergies. Okay, so simple allergies. We come from Israel. I know that if I'll go to the doctor with some allergies, it might give me some, spray for nasal spray or something like that. I went here to the doctor, and I know already that if you go to a French doctor, you'll probably get out of there with a bag full of, treatment. And honest, because I know that, I didn't go for like 3 weeks until she was really suffering. But yesterday I went there, and as expected, she gave me like a huge list of things that she can take. And I came back home with a bag, at least it's a paper bag and not a plastic bag, but a whole bag of sprays and syrup and all this kind of thing. And my husband looked at me like, what does she have? Is she okay? I'm like, no, forget it, just some allergies. But it's it's a cultural thing. You don't get out of the doctor without something, or at least 5 things.
So true.
and and you need to know that, because otherwise, so, oh my god, what does she have? It's like, don't worry about it. Nothing. Allergies.
Yeah, I've definitely been there with the bag of prescriptions.
Exactly. And we're laughing at it, like in French culture, one of the first things that you'll check is where's the closest pharmacy wherever you go to live, because like that's part of like it's part of your routine. You know where the pharmacy is, right? You need to go at least once a week. There is a reason to go to the pharmacy. So it's a lot of those different situations, and I think that's what is really important for us here on this podcast to do, is bring the awareness to the fact it's not that it's better or worse, it's just different. And the more you're aware of this, the easier it will be to navigate it. Because as Mayan just mentioned, if you go to the doctor understanding that there's high chance you're going to go with a lot of prescription, different type of drugs and treatments out of the doctor, then you don't freak out when it happens, because it's part of the thing. But so we talked about a couple of challenges related to birth in different countries. What would you say are common challenges that parents are dealing with when they move with kids already. So they have their own, it's little kids. What are they expecting?
Yeah, I love this question. I think in moving abroad with young children, parents are often so worried about how the children are going to adjust, which is normal, right? Kids are definitely creatures of habit, and an international move leads to some routine adjustments. And so parents often try and recreate the familiar for their kids. Whether it's paying a premium for a bilingual daycare or a nanny service, or importing their child's favorite snacks or clothes, or whatever it may be. We really want our children to feel safe and secure and supported in that change. The reality is that children are incredibly adaptable. And one of the biggest gifts that we can give our children in moving them abroad is to let them absorb and experience local culture. And this can be difficult and uncomfortable at first, usually more for parents than for the children. But soon you're going to have children that speak another language fluently, that are completely immersed in their new culture, and that is something that they will take with them throughout their lives, and it's a huge gift. I actually think that the biggest challenge for parents when moving abroad with children is actually finding their own village of support. And when we focus so much on our child's well-being and stability, we can often put ourselves and our own needs on the back burner, which I guess is true in all aspects of parenthood. But specifically in moving abroad, when you move, you're often leaving that support system in your home country or previous country, and when you arrive in a new country, having a baby or a young child is actually a great avenue to build that support system. You're needing to get out and about, exploring the city, whether you're walking a sleeping baby in a stroller or whether you're finding the coolest playgrounds in your neighborhood. These are all opportunities to meet and bond with like-minded parents who can become your support system and local family while abroad. And there are usually meetup groups or parent support groups in at least every city that I have lived in, and there's usually multiple different avenues to reach out for that support and meet other parents with kids of similar ages. And I think that living abroad in and of itself can sometimes be quite isolating, especially if you focus everything on your kid, because then you lose yourself, and so building that village of support is really crucial in parenting abroad.
Absolutely, that is so true. We see it all the time with our clients, women that are, so in need of helping their kid. And what will happen to my kid? I move him, I take his friends away, I take his support system. He doesn't know the language. And after 3-4 months, the kid is absolutely adapted. He speaks the language. He has plenty of friends. And the mom is like, oh my God, what just happened? What do I do now? Now I have to take care of myself. And actually, we can let go so many of our worries and actually trust our kids. I said all the time, trust your kid. He knows what he's doing, probably more than you do regarding a move abroad. Kid, you mentioned it before, they're so adaptive and they learn so fast. All you need to do, is just say to them that you trust them, that they can do it, give them that support and take care of yourself because you need it as well, maybe more than your kid.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's talk about another big challenge. Let's talk potty training. So, can you discuss the impact of relocation and offer maybe some guidance for parents that are going through this training? It's a hard part in childhood for everyone in parenting. But when moving abroad at this specific time, I believe it can get even more challenging, more frustrating for both sides. So if you have some solutions on that.
Absolutely. So the potty training process is a delicate balance between the physiological and the behavioral. It's a process that can take some children a few days and others a few months for them to navigate. An international move is a big change for the whole family. And for a child who is potty training or has recently started to use the potty, a move, whether it is down the street or to another country, can naturally lead to some more frequent accidents. So for parents who are looking to start the toilet training process alongside an international move, which is common because a lot of parents try to potty train during the summer months. It's warmer, less clothing, less mess, more outdoor time. Ideal time to start potty training, but also an ideal time for an international move in between school years, etc. And so those two can kind of coincide. I would definitely encourage as much as possible to separate the two events. So we really want to start the potty training process in a consistent and stable environment for your child. So where your focus can really be on your child's potty training process, where you can really be present and give them 100% of your focus. We're not unpacking or packing boxes, right? For parents who are moving abroad with a child who has recently learned how to use the potty, definitely expect a few accidents. When you arrive at your new location, whether it's temporary or permanent, I think a lot of people will kind of go into some temporary housing and like a international move as well. But whenever you arrive at your new location, set up the floor potty or the toilet seat reducer or whatever you're using kind of immediately. Show your child where it is, help them get familiar and comfortable with that location. You might need to kind of prompt them a little bit more than you have been, be a little bit more present with them until they kind of get comfortable in that new environment. If you are experiencing more accidents, how you react as a parent is really, really important to getting yourself back on or getting your child back on track. We really want to try and avoid using words like "it's okay." We definitely want to be supportive, but it really isn't okay. So we don't really want to say that it is, right? We also don't want to get angry or shame them or make them feel any worse about it. Instead, I generally suggest that we kind of stick to the facts. Some kind of language along the lines of like, it looks like we didn't quite make it to the potty this time. Let's go get you changed, right? Factual. And then at the same time, we really want to kind of double down on the excitement and the positivity when they do make it to the potty. You see them sitting there and you say, whoa, look at you. You're sitting on your new potty in your new home, really excited, lots of smiles. Or let's say they made it, they've been having a lot of accidents. You notice that day they haven't had any. Then you can say, hey, call it out, right? We made it a whole day without any pee or poo in our pants. Like, I am so proud of you, and give them a nice big hug. This is the kind of language and interaction that your children will thrive on. And it will really encourage them to get back into the toilet training process and have fewer accidents.
Wow.
Those are great advices. Potty training is another big challenge. It's a challenging period. And a lot of times maybe we see kids moving and everything around them changes and it's not a stable environment. So more accidents happen, like you just mentioned. And we don't say it's okay. And I think this advice of just mentioning the facts is a great advice. And Generally speaking, I really believe that talking to your kids, even if they're toddlers, potty training, speaking to them and saying, hey, I know this is a new environment. It's a new potty. It's a new house. I understand it can be challenging for you as well. It's challenging for me as well. And we're in this together, and just making it, lighter, the whole, environment, the whole, uh, everything lighter.
Lighter. Yeah. I think it's about being super honest and aware and intentional. Understand that it's part of the process, so bring the right intentions to it. Um, and if we have to go to another massive, probably challenge that a lot of parents are dealing with, and as you mentioned before, it's a challenge that I guess a lot of parents are dealing with no matter where they live, but where it's combined with a relocation, they are starting to see the light in the middle of the night again. So we want to talk about sleep, and how do you work with parents to establish a supportive sleep foundation for their kids, their babies during a relocation. After a relocation, we also have some people dealing with jet lags and things like that. So what do you recommend?
Yeah, definitely. So I like to think of sleep as a puzzle. There are different pieces that fit together in that puzzle, and they kind of work together to build a healthy sleep foundation. They do all work together, and they are all equally important. So when I work with families, we talk through these puzzle pieces and what that looks like for their unique family. And it's a really holistic approach where we kind of discuss all of the different components that build a healthy sleep foundation. I want to kind of circle back to your question about jet lag specifically, but when there's an international move, some of those puzzle pieces are a little out of whack. So we expect more frequent night wakings, early risings, bedtime battles. All of these things will kind of start to get a little bit more highlighted because there's a foundational piece of that puzzle that has kind of fallen off, right? And we want to kind of work together to build it back up again. But when we kind of bring it down to basics, let's say, for example, you have a baby who is waking multiple times a night, and they could be waking for multiple reasons. And the frustratingly common advice of just letting them cry is almost never the answer. And instead, we want to zoom out and look at their schedule to make sure that we're offering them sleep when their body needs it, that they aren't too overtired or undertired, which can make sleep naturally more challenging. We also want to look at their sleep environment and make sure that it is conducive to sleep. Is your child getting enough broad spectrum daylight during daylight hours, or enough physical activity? How is feeding going? Do you maybe need a longer or shorter pre-sleep routine leading up to sleep? And then finally, what tools are they using to fall asleep? And are these tools sustainable for them as the baby and you as the parent? Do we maybe want to come up with a plan to help them sleep in more of an autonomous way? All of these factors are things that can impact how a baby or child sleeps throughout the night. And understanding the sleep systems in our bodies, how they work together, as well as all of these different factors, can really help us determine the right approach to sleep for your unique child and your unique family. When it comes to things like jet lag, parents often get really, really worried about time zone changes. I like to remind them that we used to go back and forth from Paris to Singapore, and we've survived. What I also like to remind them is that your child will be jet lagged, but so will you. And the advice that I would give to a family with a jet lagged child is, like, by the time you adjust, so will your child. And the biggest factor in kind of getting those puzzle pieces back in place, which is mostly scheduling, right? We can use the environment to really help the mismatch on what we call their circadian system, which is their internal clock system. And so their internal clock system says, I wake up at 7 a.m. my local time, which might be 4 a.m. in my new time, or it might be at 10 a.m. in my new time, or noon, or whatever that looks like. And so in order to help ease them onto that local time, we want to use the environmental factors that can help reset their circadian system. And what I mean by that is, if the clock says you're supposed to be awake, we're going to be awake. We're going to wake up. We're going to get outside, get some broad spectrum daylight that really helps work with our circadian system during the daylight hours. And then if we're having nighttime pajama parties at 2 a.m, we're going to keep things really dark, calm, quiet. And if we do those things, then by the time you adjust to local time, your child will adjust to local time as well.
I love it, and it is such a painful subject. Because it's true also for babies and toddlers, but children and adults as well. Like, I love that you mentioned that it's a puzzle, and I already heard you say it, and I already quoted you on this in several occasions. Because I love it. It's so true. There are so many things that we need to think about. It's not just you put on off the lights and go to sleep. It's not about that. And when your child, it doesn't matter if it's a baby, a toddler, or a child is not sleeping at night because of so many reasons. Check out if he's eating okay. Check out if you're eating, if you're having enough exercise, if you're gone out, to see some sun, daylight. Maybe you're overtired when you go to sleep. It's all true for adults as well, for all the children, teenagers. It's all true. And while you're speaking, I was thinking, of another difference when you move to another country. For example, now in Paris, the daylight is until so late. And I have a hard time explaining to my little one, why does she have to go to sleep when it's so the
Bright light
sun
outside.
is outside? Why am I going to sleep? And how to do it? They don't understand it. It's a big difference. When we lived in Israel, 6 p.m. the sun was down, and it was obvious that you're going to take a shower, dinner, and go to sleep. That's okay. But now it's like daylight until 10:30. And they don't understand it. And like you mentioned, like, it doesn't work with their system, and the whole night is upside down. And for me, when I wake up in the middle of the night and my kids say, oh, I can't sleep, and I'm like, okay, can I sleep? No. If I can't sleep, if I'm not in the right, if my puzzle is not settled, like you said, then why would she? Let's see what we can do, to arrange this situation.
You're absolutely right, and that's something that I get a lot. I actually have the same conversation with my almost 5-year-old about why he goes to sleep when it's broad daylight out. And what's actually really interesting is that our circadian systems are completely dictated by the gravitational pull to the sun, and so naturally, during the longer summer hours, our bodies tend to need less sleep than during the darker winter hours. And the way that our internal clock is kind of biologically set up is that we rise with the sun and we go to sleep with the sun. We do happen to live in a location right now where there's a lot of daylight. But this kind of, or the development of our circadian system goes back to the caveman age. And we are not in that time anymore. We have the ability to create a sleep conducive environment. And so things like blackout curtains are going to be your best friend in these long summer hours, because as soon as you can block out that broad spectrum daylight, then your internal clock system is like, oh, I get it. It's sleep time. Gonna produce that melatonin. Gonna get myself to sleep. And that is not a unique tip to kids either. That, like you said, goes from early infancy, around the age of kind of 4 months or so is when our daytime circadian system starts to develop, and all the way through adulthood. And so, yeah, the blackout curtains that's what is needed in these long summer hours.
Great tip, and I can only think about those people living even in the northern countries, Scandinavia, and like it's always daylight and
or always
summer.
dark.
Yeah,
Like I can tell that very personally. I find it very hard in winter because I find it very hard to wake up in the dark, and around 3 p.m. I'm like, okay, it's dark outside. I can call it a day. Like, are we done? Like, and it's really hard to function. Like, so I think daylight is it's not a cultural thing, but it's definitely a big change, especially if you change like between really different places around the globe, and then you deal with things that you probably never dealt with. Like,
I hate curtains. I hate
I hate
curtains. I
curtains.
never,
I never
use
have.
them. But now I find myself closing everything, so to try
I
to
hate
block
it.
the sun.
Bring me light on. I need everything to be open. I will stay awake like this, but
But you don't have kids.
That's okay. Gal will sleep. She'll sleep all throughout the winter months, and then in the summer you'll just stay awake. It's fine.
exactly. I would definitely live like that, like a bear.
Follow your biological circadian system. You're good.
I wish I could. It sounds amazing to me. I love this idea.
Just don't go anymore. Don't go to those Nordic countries, and you're going to have you'll have a lot of trouble.
No, waste of my time.
So tell us a little bit more about your services and how people can find you. What can you offer to them to help them more in their life abroad journey?
Absolutely. So I offer one-on-one virtual support sessions for families all over the world, for prenatal coaching and birth planning, for sleep coaching, and for potty training support. I also run professional workshops for employees and managers to help support parents in the workplace. And a little bit of a sneak peek, I'm working currently on some master classes that will be available hopefully later this year on my website for purchase. And if you would like to work with me, I would love to work with you. You can book sessions directly through my website. Or reach out to me via email with any questions. And I will also be offering a 15% discount to listeners of this podcast with the code SMOOZATIVE. And please feel free to follow me on Instagram. I have tons of tips and tricks on parenting, sleep, and potty training. And my Instagram handle is Sasha Romary Parenting.
Amazing. And we will make sure to put all the links and all the plans and tag you in the captions of this podcast so you can find it very easily and reach out to Sasha because it's amazing what you're doing. And like, I don't have kids yet, but I know that when I'll have, I'm going to go to the two of you, be like, hey, do something. I feel like help, SOS.
We'll be here.
I know you are.
And, just a reminder that it is okay to ask for help, to find your support system. You'll need it. And that's not a sign of weakness. On the contrary.
I love what you said in the beginning. Find your own village. It's something that we used to have. You talked about cavemen. Mm-hmm. We used to live in tribes and having the support system. I am a big advocate of moving abroad. And one of the things that happens when you move abroad is that you leave your village and you move to another one. Create another village. And it doesn't have always to be a physical village. You can find your surrounding system, your surrounding support online. This is what we are here to do. This is what Sasha is doing. Just connect with the right people that makes you feel like you got this and you can do this. And those who keep on telling you that you shouldn't and that you can't and that it's not, then make room for other people. Put them aside a little bit. Make the right village for you so that you have a good experience, at least as much as you can, because there's enough challenges. We should not make it harder on ourselves. Sasha, just before we end this amazing podcast, and I'm sure our listeners love it, we have a last question that we're asking to all of our guests, and we love, is what does a smooth and positive move abroad means to you?
I love this question. And it's actually a little bit, my answer is a little bit of what you were kind of just mentioning. I think moving abroad with kids, like I said earlier, can easily become all about the kids and ensuring that that transition is smooth and positive for them. The move itself is a to-do list, essentially, that you tick off and get through. Some families have the support of a relocation service that can help with the moving logistics. If you have the ability to do that, I highly recommend it. It makes the move with children just that much easier. But once you have moved from point A to point B, it's the settling in to that new location that can make for that smooth and positive experience. Moving abroad, just like navigating parenthood, is unpredictable. It is a roller coaster of beautiful highs and challenging lows. And what makes an experience smooth and positive is the ability to approach new situations with an open mind, absorb the culture around you, engage with it, ask questions, and like you were saying, Gal, always reach out for support. It is there. It is waiting for you, no matter where you are in the world, whether local or virtual, and that will really help guide your way and make for that smooth and positive experience.
This is so true, and I can so very relate to what you just say. And I want to thank you for being here on our podcast and for sharing your expertise and your knowledge and those amazing tips and advices. And I'm sure it was very valuable to everyone listening here.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Thank you, Sasha, for being here with us today. And thank you for joining us on the Coffee Talkie Show, the podcast for women living abroad. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and gained valuable insights, tips, and inspiration for your journey as an expat.
If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future episodes, please feel free to reach out to us via our website or social media. And if you loved what you heard today, please like, follow, and leave us a rating and a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, sending positive vibes your way.